Some people are black holes, almost feeding off of you until you're nothing but an empty bag of bones. I met a girl on Tinder like that. She was a black hole, all right. She tried to suck the life out of me, and I don't mean metaphorically. I was up late, swiping left and right, mostly right. I wouldn't go as far as to say all I was looking for was a heartbeat, but hey, my standards are low, okay? And I'm cool with it. I landed on this emo chick. She had the 2000s bangs, all the piercings, jet black hair, copious amounts of eyeliner, and the skin tone of mayonnaise. My kind of lady right there. Her name was Amanda, and I swiped right in a heartbeat. The swiping continued and I went to bed, but I never stopped thinking about Amanda. I woke up the next morning grabbing my phone and checking to see if she matched with me. Nope, I was a little sad and continued my day as usual. I can't lie and say I didn't think about her all day. The next night, I was up late again. I was playing video games when I heard my phone ding. It was my latest match, and who do you think it was? Amanda. I was stoked and quickly slid into those DMs, and let me tell you, she was quick to reply. It was like destiny. We talked for a little about movies, our favorite bars. She didn't mention she was a night owl like myself, but on a more extreme level. She had a night job, so she slept during the day. Practically a flipped schedule compared to myself. I was technically talking to her before she went to work. I wasn't sure this was going to work out, but I gave her a shot anyway. After a few nights of talking, she invited me over. Of course I said yes and was immediately on my way to her house after she'd forwarded me her address. This was extremely out of the ordinary for me. I can't remember the last time a woman invited me over to their house. I'm no Zac Efron in the mirror, but I'd come to terms with that a while ago. She lived in a literal ghost town. I don't think anyone but her was living in this neighborhood. Half the houses were either falling apart, demolished, or boarded up with grass reaching a few feet tall. I almost turned around, which I should have, honestly now that I'm thinking about it, but I guess I was desperate. I had finally pulled up and hopped out of my car, making my way to her front door. Before I could knock, she was already opening the door for me to come in. Let me start with the smell. It was stale, kind of reminding me of a really, really old house, or the smell of your great-grandma's house. Candles were lit on almost every countertop or table, some even on the floor. What a really weird first impression, I thought. I was super thirsty and asked if she had anything to drink. Water would do. Oddly, she didn't have any water. Said I probably wouldn't like what she drank anyways. I brushed it off. I wasn't dying of thirst or anything. I could wait. I started following her down a hallway into what I'm guessing was her bedroom. The room smelled absolutely awful. It was like the stale smell of the rest of the house, but add in a rotting corpse or two. There were no windows, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think there were windows anywhere in her house. Everything in her bedroom was red. The walls, the furniture, the bed sheets and comforter. Guess she really liked red. She told me to have a seat at the foot of her bed. As soon as I got comfortable, she started rubbing on my neck, telling me I should unbutton my shirt. I felt things were escalating very, very quickly, but I was totally down for it. I unbuttoned my shirt, then she started licking my neck. After a few seconds, she tells me to wait a moment while she grabs her camera for memory's sake. I thought that was cute, didn't think twice about it. I have to admit, that smell was almost impossible to get out of my head. She must have been nose blind to it, like how a lot of people are around a smell so much that they don't even smell it anymore. Surely if she'd known, she would have taken care of it before I came over. A couple minutes passed and she still hadn't come back yet. I decided to check out the rest of her room, maybe even see if I can figure out what the smell was or where it was coming from. She had these really creepy looking dolls. There was also something extremely strange on one of her walls, a collage of men on photographs. I realized that's probably where my picture would end up. That put me off a little bit, I have to admit. I didn't feel super special anymore, but hey, I was still down for whatever. I won't get upset over a one-night stand. I know a lot of guys who wouldn't either. The smell started getting stronger as I passed over to the other side of the room. There was nothing in the light of sight that could explain it, but I knew I was nearly on top of it. There was a door that I thought probably led to a closet, so I figured I'd take a peek. I'm not one for going through other people's things, especially knowing that some people are super private, but I let my curiosity get ahead of me. When I opened the door, I almost puked. The smell amplified, smacking me right in the face and nearly causing me to pass out. After catching my breath and covering my nose, I looked inside. There were 3 dead bodies hooked up to IVs that fed into several bags filled with blood. 2 tubes were attached to one side of their necks. I assumed their jugular veins were the hookup line feeding those bags. Their faces were sunken in, skin stretched, nearly leather. They must have been there a while. I still managed to recognize the faces of all 3. They were some of the guys on the wall collage. I knew I'd be next if I didn't get out of Dodge, so that's what I did. I rammed through the front door and sprinted to my car. As I was hopping in, Amanda was watching me from her porch steps. I went through our text to make sure I never told her where I lived. I still haven't told the police. I really don't think they'd believe me. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a 19-year-old female attending college far away from where I grew up. I easily get lonely. The transition has been really difficult being so far from home. I think this guy I met on a dating app knew that. I never explicitly told him all those details, but I think he knew, like a vulture sniffing out its prey. We met on a dating app. I usually don't take that stuff seriously. Most of the guys are there for one thing, and that's to hook up. I wanted something more, something that might evolve. Is that too much to ask? I'd curved plenty of men over the weeks. Gosh, they all sounded the same. Want to come over? Are you freaky? What's your body count? I could go on and on. Is that all most guys think about? Please let me know. It's kind of degrading. That's when I met Charles. I was honestly taken aback when I saw his profile photo. His smile looked super creepy, and he didn't look like he knew what grooming was. I've got to admit, I swiped right hoping he'd already swiped on my profile, maybe getting a laugh at how weird our conversation would be. We matched. I decided to make the first move. It's usually the other way around, but I didn't see this going as far as it did. Turns out, he wasn't weird at all, and he never once brought up anything sexual. A few days of texting led to a few days of talking on the phone. Then one day I got a knock on the door. It was him. I didn't remember having ever told him of my address, but I knew we'd been talking for over a week now, so it was quite possible I'd told him. I just didn't remember. He'd brought me my favorite kinds of flowers. Don't remember telling him that as well, along with a vinyl I'd been looking for ages. It was super sweet, but very sudden. I told him I appreciated all those things, but wanted to make sure he didn't expect anything out of it. It wasn't like we were dating. He seemed to take it pretty well, and that was that. We ended up watching a couple of movies and said our goodbyes. But once he left, I still felt slightly uneasy about it all. Something wasn't sitting right with me. Call it a gut feeling or whatever. I started texting and talking on the phone with him less. I felt it to be the best thing to do so that I wasn't giving him the wrong impression. Time between texts got more distant, same with the calls. I was working a new summer job and my schedule was just busier. That's when he started showing up to my work. I was a server at a restaurant, so when I found him sitting in one of my sections, I pulled the hostess aside. They said he'd requested my section. I never served him. I told my manager about it, and they said they didn't want to deny him service, but he ended up leaving anyway. As soon as he walked out the door, I got a call from him. I bet you could guess that I didn't answer. Almost 2 weeks later, he was back. It was already late. I was closing and there really wasn't anyone else there but me and the bartender cleaning up the place in preparation for the next day. I told the bartender to walk me to my car, just in case Charles tried following me, but I never thought he'd follow me home. I noticed on the way to my house that the same car had been following me almost the entire way from my work. I immediately made the connection. My phone was dead, so I couldn't call anyone and let them know what was going on. I know, what a coincidence. I felt like karma was getting back at me for something I did a long time ago, though I don't know what that thing would be. I scrambled for my front door when I heard him yell my name. I'd already gotten the lock in the door and unlocked it at this point, but before I went inside, I turned around. He was just smiling with something in his hands, a gift he said. I told him to leave or I was calling the police. I went inside and locked the door. A few moments later, he was banging on all of my windows, saying, just look, I know you'll like it." He eventually left, and when he did, I made sure he was gone before I looked at what he left me. They were photographs of my parents and I spread across the staircase leading to my front door. I thought to myself how he could have gotten them. The only person who would have had these is my mother. I haven't talked to her or my father in a few weeks. I tried calling them, but they haven't returned any of my calls.